Morning, everybody. Welcome to today's HE Hub. I'll kick off. I know there's a couple of people still joining, and I think we've got some people that might be watching on demand. So I'll just kick off the session. So welcome, everyone. Today's HE Hub is to look at how you can use Dynamics 365 to manage research and enterprise relationships. So we've got, I'll do a bit of an intro, and then we've got a bit of a demo from Martin, and we'll do some introductions as well for anyone that is new to these sessions or new to Crimson. So just a little bit of an introduction to kick us off. So for anyone new to these sessions, the HE Hub goal really is to bring together our peers in the higher education sector to share technology and any relevant themes and strategic discussions in the market to our network. We're really keen for these sessions to be quite interactive. So if you have any questions throughout, I'll keep an eye on the chat. Or if you're comfortable to do so, please just come off mute or raise your hand and we'll keep an eye on that, and then we can get some more of a discussion going. But just a little bit about background about Crimson before we kick in with everything. So our main goal and mission statement is to unite people, processes and technology to solve your toughest business challenges. And that's something that we really try and champion in all our engagements with our customers. We know that through delivering those iterative and agile techniques, we can really drive seeing value quicker, but also validate business cases and improve user adoption. So it's something that we try to bring into every engagement that we have and every project that we do. We are really lucky to work with a number of different higher education organisations across the UK, including Salford, Newcastle, and more recently Birmingham University. What we're really keen to do is share that knowledge and that expertise gained throughout these engagements with other customers in the sector. And we also partner with both Microsoft and with BT. We are a Microsoft partner, and we have various service lines across our resourcing arm at Crimson, but also our specialist IT consultancy, cloud services and our managed services. So really can look to support across your business journeys wherever you are on that transformation process across various technologies in the Microsoft stack. So that's just a little bit about Crimson and the Higher Education Hub. But just I suppose an intro to us. So I think you might have, if anyone's been on these sessions before, you probably heard our voices or seen us. So Madeline Masters, I'm an account manager at Crimson. Apologies. And I work across the higher education sector. So looking after a number of our university customers. And kind of similar to that previous slide, trying to bring that expertise and that knowledge that we gain from others to really drive that journey forward in the sector. I'm also joined today by Martin, who, well, I'll let you introduce yourself, Martin.
Yep. Good morning, everybody. Yep, Martin Gallagher. I'm one of the solution consultants within our consultancy team here at Crimson. I work really closely with various parts of the business, including our sales team, to do sessions like this one, do art of the possible type sessions, look at how businesses can utilize the various technologies within the Microsoft stack to meet their business requirements. So I shall pass back to Madeline.
Perfect, thanks, Martin. So that's just a little bit about us, but today specifically we'll be looking at how you can manage research and enterprise relationships better through leveraging that Microsoft technology and Dynamics 365. So when we first started looking at this, we were kind of thinking about how across your universities or the higher education sector, there's various touch points with various groups of people, which can be broken down a lot more than what we have on this slide here. So if you've got any more subgroups that you think would feed into it, it'd be great if you can pop them in the chat and we can kind of call some of those out. But I think when we were kind of initially talking about this, we were saying a lot of the focus is often on how we manage student engagements and not so much on that staff, government, external kind of contacts, but each of these have very different relationships and preferred communication methods and ways of working. For example, a marketing email that you send out to your students about a career event will be different to the information that you need to share with your staff who are helping to run and organise it, which will then differ to any more, for example, formal communication that you might need to share with your external stakeholders like guest lecturers or businesses that could be sponsoring it, etc. So I don't think we've had anything put in the chat, but when we kind of looked at what that would look like with each of these kind of subgroups, you've got your staff, academic, admin, hospitality, pastoral, then your students, research, undergrads, prospects, all of which have very different engagement. But then if we look actually at the external stuff around stakeholders, your sponsors, mentors, and even then into your local government, what are the relationships that you need to manage across each of those? So really what we wanted to do in the demo, and I'll hand over to Martin in a minute, but was kind of exploring how you can have those multiple relationships in one system. So how do we focus on those research and enterprise relationships, but really drive them from that Microsoft stack? So Martin, I will now hand over to you for the demo. If you're okay to take the screen.
Yep, sure. Let me just share my screen.
And if there's any questions throughout, like I said, I'll keep an eye on the chat. We're happy to take them during the demonstration that Martin is doing, or I can hold them to the end, whichever.
Yep. Okay. Cool. Thanks, Madeline. Okay, so I guess let me just do a little bit of scene setting with regard to the sort of the demo. The title of this particular webinar is around managing sort of relationships with regard to enterprise relationships and also research relationships. But actually, in reality, the sort of some of the things that I'm gonna show you in the next sort of 10-15 minutes or so are really sort of focused around any type of relationship. So I think sometimes though we tend to think that, you know, the things that we put in place to manage the relationships that we have with students, although the actual messaging might be different when it comes to dealing with the other types of business relationships that the university has to manage, the messaging might be different, but actually the tools and the technology that you can use can be the same. I guess where I wanted to kind of start with this is really a sort of an observation that I've kind of picked up over sort of my sort of many years working in this relationship, and that is managing relationships, particularly to the point where you want them to be good relationships and lengthy relationships that last a long time, takes a lot of hard work. And, you know, we have to invest a lot of time in those relationships. But also we've got our day job to do as well. So finding the time to kind of be able to engage with those various partners, those various businesses, the mentors, the guest speakers, you know, this is in addition to the relationships that we have to maintain with students and academic staff and the other sort of other university staff as well. It does take a lot of time. So there's a couple of things that you can utilize within the Dynamics suite of products that can be very, very useful, and that can help with supporting you in the way that you actually manage those relationships. So the first thing that I kind of wanted to start with was to look at a contact record. So hopefully if you've got Dynamics, or even if you haven't got Dynamics, if you've got another CRM system, you will be fully familiar with you know, probably a contact record. So so the first thing that I would stress out here is obviously we need to make sure we capture the right information. So one of the things that I think sometimes we fail when it comes to implementing a CRM system is making sure that we classify the various contacts in all the different ways that we need to. And a lot of this information doesn't necessarily have to be manually input. It can come from, integration with other systems. So, your other sort of university backend systems that you might be using. It could come from there. We could be pulling it from things like LinkedIn, for example. Microsoft own LinkedIn now, so there's a lot of stuff that we can pull through from LinkedIn and use that to populate your records within Dynamics 365. So, having things like, what type of business are they? What sort of subtype are they? Are they previously an alumni and they've turned into a business contact? Yeah. So things like that you can quickly add on to your form to sort of build up this view of the contact or view of the organization, because this can apply to the organization as well. So making sure that you've got the right kind of information that you can then classify your contacts. What you can then do is, once you start classifying your contacts, then it's very easy to then kind of build out views of those contacts, so you can group them together into lists. So you'll have a list of your your commercial engineering contacts. You might have a list of your guest speakers, for example. So you can very quickly get to those kinds of contacts very quickly. The other thing that I kind of wanted to draw your attention to is the timeline. So the timeline is a history of interactions that you have with your various contacts, and you can see here, for example, that I've got a timeline here that's on the contact form, and this timeline goes back in chronological order. So the most recent activities are at the top. Now, these activities might include things like, you can see there, I've got a task, for example, I've got an appointment, there's an email, and this is bi-directional. So basically, emails coming in from Alan in this case could be appearing on this timeline, and also what you can do is then activities that you can send out will then also make it onto this timeline. Now, the great thing about Dynamics is that it works really closely with Microsoft Outlook. So it has a native integration to Outlook. So that list of activities can then get pushed through to Outlook, and that's really quite important when you want to build strong relationships, because obviously we use Outlook a lot to manage emails, to manage appointments, to manage tasks. So having that pushed into Outlook really kind of helps as well. And something that's recently come from Microsoft is, unfortunately, I haven't got it set up in this demo, but I can certainly tell you about it. They've just recently introduced a new feature which will make recommendations of the things that you have in Outlook that can then get pushed through to Dynamics. Now, it will recommend it here on this form. So what you would do is you would see it here on this form, and it would be basically saying, you might want to promote these emails or these appointments to Dynamics because it's quite useful for other people to be able to see these. Now, it's only you as the individual that will see that. But again, that's really important from a relationship perspective, because other people within the business, if they have a relationship with that individual as well, it's maybe useful for them to see that piece of communication that you've had with that particular individual. So using the timeline and using it effectively. The other thing that I did want to point out to you, and again, this is something that people often forget, is this plus sign here will allow me to add new activities onto this timeline, and you can see I've got all the standard ones here, but because we're using a portal as well, we have got a couple of additional ones. So you've got things like invite redemption, portal comment. Yeah. The other one that's quite useful to pull out here is this customer voice alert. So this is basically if they're filling in a survey, again, that can all form part of the relationship. So how they respond to surveys is really useful, because obviously that allows you to see whether there's any positivity, hopefully, but obviously the opposite of that is any negative comments that are coming in. So that will give you an alert to see, whether they've actually completed a survey. So that would appear in this timeline as well. So that's really quite a useful thing to have. All of this helps to being informed when you're talking to the customer. Whatever that customer might be, whether it's a guest speaker or whether it's an investor or somebody offering research opportunities, or people actually undertaking the research themselves. I think it's safe to say that we've all had the experience where we've had a conversation with a partner or with another business where they clearly don't have the right information, or they're clearly not up to date with the current situation of the relationship. So I'm sure you've all had bad experiences when shopping online, for example, and the wrong order arrives, and then you have to phone up their customer service center, and it's clear from the conversation that you're having with them that they are not fully briefed in the current situation that is ongoing. So and that all starts the whole kind of negativity and leads to a negative relationship. So, the chances are you probably won't use them again because you've had a bad experience. So anything that you can do to make sure that everybody within the organization is fully briefed in the current situation with the relationship is really important. So using that timeline, making sure that you add appropriate fields onto the forms, even having different forms, so you can actually have different forms. So you can see here I've got two different forms here. I've got one for the mentor and one for the student. So I've got two different forms here, so I can flick between the two, so I can see different pieces of information. So having that kind of structure in the way that you capture information is really important. Now, the next thing I kind of wanted to just bring into this session was how you then share that information with your various individuals that you are likely to be engaging with. So what I'm going to do is just jump over to this one here. So this is a portal. I don't know if you've seen a portal before, but this is a Power Platform portal. The great thing about these is that they're designed to work with Dynamics 365. So it's quite an effective and an efficient way of being able to engage with your individuals. Now, this one is actually a student portal, but there's nothing to stop you from having portals for your other types of relationships. So you could have a portal for, I think somebody put in the chat earlier on about one of the relationships that you have to manage is around partners, so other organizations that you partner with. So you could have a partner portal where they could log into that portal and share information with you, engage with you. You can share information with them, which is really useful. And it almost has become an expectation now that you'll be offering this when you start building up relationships. The days of where we did everything over the phone or everything via an email, those days are kind of out. Well, actually, let me rephrase that. Our expectations of a business has gone beyond that now. It's kind of the Amazon effect, as I like to call it. So, we've all got so used to going online, using portals, shopping online, all of that, and now it's an expectation that every organization, not just retail, but every organization will have this type of feature to be able to maintain that relationship with the organization. So you can see here, if I scroll down through this one, this is an inquiry that's actually come in from a student. It's a kind of a complaint, really, and they're asking about hygiene standards. But if I go down here, look, the timeline. I'm pushing the timeline through to the portal. So basically, as I'm sending emails out to the particular student in this case, then those emails will appear on here as well. Any appointments that I set up, any phone calls that I set up will be pushed through to the portal as well. It all goes to aid the relationship, to have that interaction with the individual. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm picking up the phone or I'm sending an email. I can push things out here as well. So using those sorts of techniques will all help to build out a relationship. Now, extending on from that, it's also become a sort of an expectation that we will use or provide other channels of communication as well. So, so when I talk about those sorts of things, I mean things like SMS. We've got used to these days communicating via text messages. Um, the other things to include in there would be things like Facebook, for example. People use Facebook a lot these days to communicate. LinkedIn again is an obvious one. WhatsApp. These are all things that people use these days to to communicate. And I can give you an example there. I recently moved home, and basically I had a WhatsApp group with my solicitor, and that's how we were communicating. I think in the whole like 3 month cycle, I think I actually picked the phone up and spoke to her about 3 times. The whole thing was done pretty much over WhatsApp. So that's the expectation these days, that you will have these other channels available to your various partner organizations, your alumni, your guest speakers, all of those sorts of things, that you will have, those features available. One of the ways that you can achieve that quite easily is through another Microsoft technology called Omni Channel. So you can see down here in the bottom, I've got a chat capability here. And if I open up the chat, you'll see that it's basically telling me there that an agent, I'm sure you've all used chat capability, but the kind of things I wanted to show you in here that are really important when it comes to managing relationships. Let's give that a second to load. There we go. So so first of all, I get a virtual agent. I get a bot. Yeah. So if I put in here very quickly, I just put in, I need help with an application. What you should see is that so this could be a research student, for example, applying for a research opportunity. And you can see here what it's actually doing is it's suggesting that I go and look at the FAQs. So I could go off and have a look at the FAQs here. And then it says, does this answer your question? So I'm going to say no to that. It doesn't really answer my question. And then it's asking, would you like me to transfer to a human agent? So I'm going to say yes to that, because there's a couple of things in here that I just want to point out to you that will help with assessing that relationship, the tone of the conversation, because again, that's really important when building relationships. I don't know if you can hear that, but in my headphones, I've got something pinging, and that's because if I jump over to Omni Channel, what you can see here is that I've got a chat coming in. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to open that. And you can see here's the chat coming in here. So now the reason why I wanted to show you this is just a couple of things here. Obviously, Omnichannel is great because what it does is it provides me with a single application that allows me to manage all my inbound inquiries, inbound interactions that are coming from my various people that I have to engage with, whether they're partners, whether they're students, whether they're research students. All those things can all come into a single interface. In addition to that, it doesn't matter whether they're using Facebook, WhatsApp, the portal, SMS, yeah, even telephone calls, they can all come into Omnichannel. And I can see that up here, because if you see this icon up here in the corner, that icon will change. So this is telling me that this is a chat conversation, so it's coming in from a web chat on the portal. That icon will change. It'll tell me if it's Facebook, it'll have a Facebook icon. If it's WhatsApp, it'll have a WhatsApp icon. So I can see that straight away. So again, I can see, how this individual wants to interact with me. And also here, it's giving me some sentiment. So it's telling me here that the conversation at the moment is neutral. So let me just put in, how can I help? And if I jump back to here, it should say, how can I help? Now, let me just prove that point to you. So if I say in here, the process is very difficult, and you'll actually see how quick this is as well. So I probably jinxed myself by saying that now. So if I jump back over here, and look, it's changed straight away to slightly negative. So what's happening here is, um, as the conversation is progressing with this particular individual, what's happening here is it's assessing all the time. It's assessing the tone of my language, and because I've used word like difficult, then it's going slightly negative. So now, as I'm interacting with this individual, I know now that the tone is getting negative here, so I need to do something about that. So again, that all helps with then building that relationship again, to get that back on track and hopefully make it really positive. The thing with this, it has to be trained though. So it does need a little bit of training in terms of the different types of words that you're going to use. But that again is all about managing that relationship and making sure that you're using the right tone, and the tone of the conversation is correct for the conversation that you're having. Okay, so what else can you do to help manage the volume of activity that might be coming in from your different audiences? So what I'm going to do is, let me just end this conversation and let me just go back here. The one thing that we often forget is dashboards. So we think of a dashboard as always being a place where we can use to build reports. So you've got a student attraction dashboard. You've got maybe a dashboard for complaints that are coming in from the students. So pastoral type dashboards. But a dashboard can actually be a place that you can use to manage relationships. So this is just a standard dashboard that you actually get with Dynamics. But what I've done is I've slightly tailored it. Let me just hide the visuals for a minute. Come on, there we go. That's better. So you've got all these different interactions that are coming into Dynamics from all your your different sources, and it could be an inquiry, for example. It could be an activity, so it could be like an email. It could be an appointment, for example. What you need to do is you need to be able to prioritize these, because one of the things that people often say to us is, the reason why our relationships are failing or our relationships are not strong is because of the amount of time it takes us to respond to those communications that are coming in from those people. We take too long, and then by the time we actually get back to them, they've moved on to somewhere else. They're now, they're talking to someone else and they don't want to talk to us anymore. So using something like this, where I can manage my activities very easily, as well as any inquiries that might be coming in, alongside each other, where I can prioritize them very quickly. And this is very easy to set up and use. So it's really quite a good thing to do. And you can do things like change the time frame. So you can see up here, I've got the time frame set. So you can look at the priorities as they change over a period of time. If I put those visual filters back on, because these are actually quite useful as well, because obviously, there's some inquiries that might have higher priority than others. So I might want to use these as a way of filtering what's going on underneath. So, the inquiries coming in, looking at things by their status. So, making sure that I've got things that are on hold, for example, then, I don't want to lose focus on those. I don't want those to suddenly get lost in the mix, so that I forget about them, because that is going to lead to a negative relationship with that individual. So you can see here, these are really quite useful, and you can use them to filter all your activity that sits below. Okay, so that's kind of a couple of the things that you can use. So I think, just to kind of summarize where we are with those at the moment, is it's about giving your contacts, giving the individuals that you have to engage with and the organizations you have to engage with, is giving them a choice in the way that they want to communicate with you, because that will help to nurture that relationship, because not everybody wants to pick up the phone, not everybody wants to send an email, particularly with and I hate to use this phrase, but particularly with younger people. They've grown up with this technology, so and even people like myself have adopted this technology. I'm very much the if I need to communicate with somebody these days, if I need to communicate with British Gas or anybody like that, the first thing I will do is look on their website and see if they've got a chat capability, because I would rather do that than pick up the phone to them and sit in a queue for for half an hour or longer. So I will look to see if they've got a chat. I can leave the chat window open on my laptop, and then it'll ping on my machine when somebody's ready to speak to me, so I can get on with other things that I need to do while waiting. The other thing that I wanted to show you, and this is just to kind of, I think, just to kind of add to where we are with our relationships, is this. I think this is really important. So a lot of our relationships will be built based on connections. So you build out a relationship through people that you know. So here's an example for you. So we've got Alex Baker here, and Alex Baker is somebody that is known to the university. Maybe she's maybe she's going to offer us research opportunities, or maybe she's a guest speaker or something of that sort of nature. So she's definitely involved with the university. She definitely engages with the university. But myself, as a university employee, I don't really know Alex, and I want to get to know her. So how can I do that? So this is some of the stuff that is now coming out from Microsoft, that is around analyzing the strength of your relationships. So you can see over here, if I look in this top right hand corner, I've got this who knows whom. So what this is doing is, this is looking at the interactions that are going on within your Dynamics platform. And also potentially looking at things like LinkedIn, and it's basically going to suggest other individuals within your Dynamics CRM system that will probably know Alex. And you can see here, it's actually suggesting 3. So it's suggesting that there are 3 people within our Dynamics platform that know Alex. And also, it's assessing the strength of that relationship. So Alan seems to have a very strong relationship with Alex. Ali, not so strong. And Diane is actually quite weak. So I can see here there are 3 people within my CRM system that know Alex. And actually, I know Alan really well. So what I can do is I can use Alan as a way of getting introduced. So what I can do is, from here, I can actually suggest to Alan, it will suggest a sample email, but obviously I can word this email however I want. I can open it up as a full email form, or I can just send it straight from here. But basically, I can type in an email to Alan, asking Alan if he would please introduce me to Alex. So I can use that from there. You can change the view of this, so you can see like a spider's view. I'm not sure what that's going to do. Let me close that down. So I can do like a spider's web sort of view of this. So so I've got Alex in the middle, and then I've got the other people around the outside. And obviously that could extend out, because then there could be people that know Alan and so on. So we've got that kind of relationship here as well. So this is using Microsoft Cognitive Services or AI to basically analyze that relationship and make suggestions to me. What it's also doing is it's showing or providing us with a view of what the relationship is. So, and this is across the organization. This is not just specifically to me as a user. So across the organization, across the university, our relationship with Alex appears to be good and steady. Yeah. And it's using that based on all the interactions that have gone on with Alex across the university over the current year versus previous years to assess the strength of that relationship. The other thing that is useful, and you probably saw this earlier on when I looked at one of the contact records, there was this thing called the assistant, and it was giving me a reminder, a notification of an upcoming activity. So it was a task. So again, that's useful for prioritizing, and especially when you're managing multiple relationships at the same time. It's useful to know, what is the next action that you need to perform with that contact, so you can keep that relationship going. But what's really useful is that actually you can do the kind of the reverse of that. This one is actually telling me that there's been no recent activity with Alex. So you have that ability as well. So obviously that might be a warning to suggest that we maybe need to reach out to Alex, have a bit of a conversation with her just to see how she's doing, just to keep that relationship going. So there's lots of things that you can use and place onto your contact form, your account forms, your different organization forms that will give you this insight into the strength of your relationship. And then what we can do is we can go to the relationship analytics. And what this will do is this will give me insight into both sides of the relationship. So the relationship from us, from the university, versus the relationship by them, so the individuals. So in this case, that would be Alex. So you can see up here, it's using different metrics. And you can configure additional metrics if you want, but these are the 4 standard ones. So so you can see here, this is suggesting that I've initiated 4 calls. I don't like some of the wording they're using here, but we can change the wording. You have initiated 4 phone calls lesser compared to the customer. So that's basically telling me that they seem to be driving the relationship via a phone, and they seem to be picking up the phone more than to contact us rather than us contacting them. You have invested 1.9 hours more compared to the customer. So again, it would appear that although we don't pick up the phone very often, actually we are sort of investing a bit more time in that relationship. And maybe that's right. Maybe that's how it should be because of the particular scenario that we're in. You take 2 hours more to respond to emails compared to the customer. So basically, the customer is responding far quicker to emails, and that could be raising an alarm, because obviously some people would see that as a negative. There's this expectation from some individuals, some organizations, that they will get an email from you within, X period of time. And maybe that's the threshold that we should be looking at. Your rate of response to emails is 40% higher compared to the customer. So we tend to respond 40% more than the customer does. So again, that's a positive for us. We've got that relationship health here. So that was the bit you saw on the previous screen. So the relationship is good and steady. Then you've got customer interactions. So compared with the customer, so basically this is the different types of interactions that we've got. And obviously in here we could include, other types of interactions like SMS, and for example. So we've got email, meetings, and phone calls. So the lighter blue is by us, and the darker blue is by them. So that's basically how we're interacting in the different activity streams, and that obviously would give me insight into maybe what their preference is. So maybe they do actually prefer phone calls to emails. So now I know that maybe the best way to speak or contact Alex is via the phone. And then we've got some additional things down here. So we've got things like hourly investment. So this is the amount of time that we're investing in this relationship. And this one I find really useful. So this is insight into how they're interacting with with the emails that we're sending them. So are they actually opening our emails? Are they viewing attachments, and are they clicking on links? Now, it's important to stress here, because I think I see some of the names, and I've seen some of the names pop up before. This is not specifically related to marketing. This is operational emails. So when we look at marketing, we've got all that fancy stuff around. Have they opened an email? Have they redirected it? Have they clicked on it? That is specifically for marketing type emails. This is actually operational emails. And in some ways, I need to be careful because I've got Emily on the call and she's our marketing guru. But in some ways, the operational emails are more important than the marketing ones, because this is your relationship. This is how you're managing that relationship. So it's important to understand how they are engaging with the emails that you are sending them specifically. And then you've got response times, and you've got email send and receive ratios. So that's giving you a lot of insight into how they are engaging with your email, and the other types of interactions that you might have with them. Okay, I'm going to pause there and hand back to Madeline, because I think we've got a Q&A session now. Madeline?
Yes, we do.
Cool.
So if anyone's got any questions, please either pop them in the chat or come off mute if you're happy to ask them. I had one, Martin. So we were talking about kind of the sentiment when we were looking at that chat window of how the relationship's going. We've got quite a few reports in here around, how have we interacted and the response times, etc. Is there any way to kind of see whether the sentiment changes depending on the route that you interact or the channel that you're interacting with them through, or tracking it that way to kind of evidence why maybe a certain demographic or a certain group might be better to respond via emails or via a call or WhatsApp?
Yeah. So obviously all of this information is all recorded in what we call the dataverse. So to be able to then look at that, we could use things like Power BI, for example, to look at, how that has changed over time, and that could be based on your messaging. So it doesn't necessarily have to be how you're interacting with them. It could be your messaging. So again, we've got Emily on the call, and one of the things that Emily gets really sort of excited about is how messaging works. If we send out an email that has this particular message in it versus this particular message, how does that change the perception of the organization because of that email and the tone of the messaging? So it could be that, but it could also be the channel. So, are we sending out emails? Are we doing WhatsApp? Are we doing SMS? Does the channel impact on the strength of the relationship as well? So yeah, the short answer is yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's really making sure that data is captured in Dynamics, which it will be. and then or as part of the dataverse, and then actually building the reports out to do that.
Yeah, because I think that kind of side of it is quite interesting, because I completely agree around, you know, the typically the younger demographics may want to message over WhatsApp or message on Facebook, for example, rather than over email. But I think sometimes, at least with me, if I have, you know, a crisis event or something like that, I often do, my instinct is to pick up the phone and engage over the phone and talk to someone, so then you get that rapport with someone and they understand the urgency, and
Yeah.
sometimes you can feel a little bit more loved isn't really the right way, but
yeah, and that's really important. And I think also it's important to understand that you know, irrespective of age, irrespective of the demographic, there will always be people that will have a preference for the channel they want to use to talk to you. And, you know, you might be talking to somebody that's in their early 20s, but they might still have a preference for a phone call versus, you know, versus an email or a WhatsApp or whatever. And likewise, there will be older people like myself who actually prefer to use chat rather than pick up the phone. So you know, it's important then that you can't just put people into these nice little boxes where everybody in this demographic always communicates this way, everybody in this demographic prefers to communicate that way. You have to know about what the individual's preferences are, and something like this will give you that insight. Yeah.
okay. I don't know if anyone on the call has seen that or has any kind of experiences, or there's any kind of takeaways from this at all. Okay.
It's all gone quiet.
I think some people might be typing,
Right, okay.
but yeah, that's really interesting, Martin. What I will do, I'll just take back the screen.
Yeah.
So just a question from Belinda,
Yeah.
Martin, we've had just wondering how much effort it takes to teach the system.
Um yeah, that's a strange one, because it's really about the system getting used to the types of um terms and phrases that you use specifically within your organization. So it will have some knowledge when it first gets set up. Um, so it will obviously know, like I used the word difficult there when I was doing the web chat. So obviously it will associate the word difficult with something that is slightly negative. So immediately it's kind of picked up on that. But there will be phrases and terms that you will specifically use in education that the platform won't really know whether they're positive or negative. So it doesn't take a huge amount of effort. But and a lot of it will be done through, you know, as it encounters these words time and time again in different scenarios, different phrases, it will begin to associate, you know, those words. So it's not a huge amount of effort. So it's hard to put like an amount of time on it, because obviously each industry, each vertical will be slightly different. I mean, in education you have lots and lots of phrases and terms that are very specific to education. So obviously you know, it's hard to put a time on it. The one thing that I always find amusing with this is that it's how we use different words now. One of my nieces referred to me a couple of months ago as wicked. Um, and I was a wicked uncle, which to me that's like negative. But of course, these days the word wicked is actually, that's a good thing. If you're wicked, that's good. So it's words like that that will, because out of the box it will probably associate the word wicked with something negative. But yeah, it needs to be trained in certain scenarios the word wicked is actually a good thing. So I'm just using that as an example, but I think you'll get what I mean. So yeah,
That makes sense.
yeah. Do you want to take the
Yeah,
screen
cool.
back? Yeah.
No worries. I'll do that now. Oh, sorry, guys. There we go. So hopefully you can just see this final slide here. So if you've got any questions off the back of this, please don't hesitate to reach out to Martin or I. What we can do is do a bit of a proof of concept with anyone that is interested in this to understand how it maybe could be used within your organisation. We do also have 2 QR codes on the screen here. So the first one is to complete a survey. So it would be great if we could get some feedback on anything else that you would like to see in these sessions, how you found that it went, if there's anything else that you want to be part of the conversation. It's a really good opportunity for us to build that network out and make it a lot more interactive with you guys. And then the other QR code that we've got on here is our LinkedIn page. So we've got a Crimson University page on LinkedIn where we share a lot of our kind of any blogs, any reports that we're seeing at the moment, any market insights. So it can be a really valuable platform and allows this network and wider to engage and interact with what we're seeing in the market too. So I'll leave them up on the screen for a little bit, but if there aren't any other questions, probably draw it to a close. But thank you everyone for joining. Appreciate you taking the time this morning to explore this. Like I said, anything that you want to talk through after this, just give me a message and then we can touch base on it. But thank you.